Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Today we thought we'd go ahead and give you our top 5 favorite movies of
Mhm.
2023. Just to I know we're in the new year already. I know.
Yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and list off the movies. So if you missed any of these,
Mm.
well, consider it an encouragement from us to go back and make sure
Mhm.
you get a good watching experience of these movies. Because 2023 had a small fistful of real gems, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I would say it's a fistful of dollars.
Yeah, it had a pretty
At
big
least.
basket of real turd muffins,
Oh,
but
man, some real stinkers
real
last year.
stinkers.
I
I
we were looking at the sheer number of movies that were released last year. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, was it a lot of movies,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was bad.
Mhm.
It was like they were compensating for how many movies weren't released during COVID,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so they just put out an unreasonable amount of movies, and only a few of them were good.
We got 7 oh, not 7, we got 5. 5.
What are you doing with
We should have had
7?
7, we should have had 7, the number
Mm.
good Christian number.
Well, there were a couple that we haven't seen, so
The couple that were probably on the list but hadn't seen, so we can't
yeah.
pick them. These are
So
our
some
picks.
honorable mentions that we haven't seen would be potentially Voyage of the Demeter, Godzilla -1,
The Killer on
The
Netflix.
Killer. Mhm.
Um,
Give me another one.
I have a few.
Blackberry.
I I
Blackberry.
I personally have a honorable mention for Maestro.
Mhm.
On Netflix. Very artistic film. So, but let's go ahead and get into our number 5, just so we can actually discuss the ones that we enjoyed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. I know
Mm.
everyone's complaining about the Part 1s, Part 2s these
Mm.
days, and I know Mission Impossible has joined those ranks. But when I watched it, the number one thing that really stood out to me from the beginning was the harkening back to the origins, right? So for Tom
Yeah.
Cruise, this movie, this franchise is very important. It was the one that it was kind of his brainchild. It was his baby. He wanted to do a film remake of the original Mission Impossible show and to bring in new characters like Ethan Hunt to, mirror or at least showcase some of the Easter eggs from the show throughout the film, which they did successfully. But the first Mission Impossible movie was a big deal because it was the first production company film for under the Tom Cruise brand, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then for this new one, it kind of got away from it. The second one was like that late 90s action
Oh,
porn,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Real
Um,
schlocky.
just just what do you motorcycle wheelies, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Some Fast and
Yeah.
Furious.
Fast and Furious. The
No,
third
like
movie,
Mission Impossible 2.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Mission Impossible 2 is it really took a weird turn. And then the third movie I thought was done brilliantly. I love the
Mm.
in-depth villain and the character development they gave Ethan Hunt and made and humanized him. He wasn't just an action
Mhm.
star. And then after that, the next 3 movies did a good job, but they kind of followed a similar format, right?
Yeah.
And
Little cut
there's
and paste.
it's a little cut and paste. Then this new one deterred from that, and it went back to a vibe that was almost like the new feeling, but really more so like the very first film, right?
Hmm.
Which felt more like a psychological thriller than it did an action spy movie.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
love that about the way it's filmed, the pacing of the film, the motivation for the characters, Ethan Hunt as a character, people from the first movie from his past is coming back into the story, and I really enjoyed that. I know it did leave a little bit of a cliffhanger. We have yet a little bit more story. That's why there's a part 2 coming to this. But I would say that's it's definitely a very fun watch, especially if you're a fan of the Mission Impossible Tom Cruise movies. Getting into our number 4
4.
is
Mm.
So we have for
Mario.
number 4, we have Mario.
Yeah, Super Mario
Um,
Bros.
this kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody was concerned going into it. Chris Pratt is playing Mario. Is he going to do a good job? Is he not going to do a good job? And he kind of pulled it, and everybody
Yeah.
fell in love with the movie. It just became like a really fan favorite with the kids, and also just the parents going to take their kids. And
Yeah,
so it was a real
I
hitter.
I watched it the other day. I can't
I
remember
did
with
too.
who. But it is fun.
Just
It is
fun.
Mhm.
just kind of a fun, enjoyable movie to watch. The animation is gorgeous, of course.
Mhm.
Lots of really good references, lots of really good character moments. Some of the story and some of the dialogue's a little bit fast paced. They kind of jump over some of the important stuff to get into the adventure. Um, but it really is one of those. I think genre defining kids movies.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
haven't had a ton of those recently. This has been a big one for, I want to say, the last 5 years, especially for video game movies in general breaking into Hollywood. I mean, we had Sonic 2, and those were kind of trailblazers, I would say. And then Mario uh, really hit it out of the park with this one.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think overall, whether you were young, old,
Hmm.
or middle aged, you enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And everyone was singing the Jack Black Peaches
Hmm.
song.
Yeah,
Everybody
and yeah, a
all
lot of
along the
heart
way.
to the movie.
A lot of
Yeah.
good heart.
What's
Yeah.
number 3?
The Creator, starring John David
Mm,
Washington,
Yeah.
directed by Gareth Edwards, and the director of photography, well, the lead director of photography, Greg Fraser.
mm,
Yeah, so The Creator kind of was the sci-fi movie of the year. There was other
mhm.
movies that are not going to be
Tried,
named
that
that
wanted to
tried
be.
to be the sci-fi movie of the year but didn't quite do what we wanted.
Mm,
But The Creator, I think, for all intents and purposes, kind of gave us what we wanted with sci-fi, heartfelt story,
mhm.
Really, really
character
deep
building.
emotional
Yeah,
Um,
moments for these
yeah,
characters in this film.
very deep
yeah.
emotional moments. So I think this is like the sci-fi of the year, maybe even of the past like 4 or 5 years, because it was that good.
Yeah, and while the movie I think has a few shortcomings in its overall storytelling and some of its dialogue choices, the visuals of the movie, um, the simplicity of the story, the grandiose kind of things that they put on screen, whether that be the landscapes, the explosions, the robot culture. It's a lot, and it was thoroughly enjoyable.
And I think cinematically, this was the most, I don't know, innovative production that we've seen
Hmm.
in a long time.
Oh yeah.
Not only was it technologically very simplified, but then they also, even just with the robot and the animations, they didn't, have stand-ins or do like people with the balls all over them. Really all they
Hmm.
did was they just got an actor as the robot, or didn't have the robot there, and they said, "We're just going to paint on top of
Hmm.
each frame. We're going to literally paint the animation and remove what we don't want." So that the animation style was a little tedious, but it was bringing it back to the roots of animation,
Yeah,
simplifying it, not having all
and
this
it didn't look
crazy.
bad. It
It
looked
looked
good.
great. It
It
honestly
looked
looked
really
great.
good.
Um,
And the budget on this movie,
Very small, $8.
and what they used to film this movie, the movie really goes to show what you can create with this kind of budget and with this kind of equipment,
Right.
when you have a good director of photography and at least a direction for your
Yeah.
story. That's all you need to create a good movie. You don't need to be spending $200 million on
No.
an epic sci-fi movie every time.
Just go watch that
Yeah.
movie, and every time you
Mm.
see something new that blows your mind visually and cinematically, just keep reminding yourself, $80 million for a 2 hour, 2.5 hour sci-fi.
Hmm.
Yeah.
$80 million. Look at how complex that movie is. How many different scenes? How many different locations they're
How much
on?
explosions?
Hmm.
How many
And then
everything?
watch Rebel Moon
Right.
to really hammer home what's good and what's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we go to number 2 pick, and you guys haven't seen this, but Killers of a Flower Moon. Um,
Of the Flower
so
Moon.
of the Flower Moon. this movie, we all knew it was going to be good going into it. They were talking about it for a long time. You know, the critics, they were saying the acting was fantastic from Leonardo DiCaprio, from Robert De Niro, and it delivered. It definitely delivered with the acting, the storytelling. It was a very long movie, but
Mm-hmm.
yet you were captivated through all of it. And and there was never a dull moment in the film. And it definitely showed us like a little bit of history, but also it showed some light on, you know, some based on a true story that actually happened. And they told a great story when by putting this to film from a book,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was definitely worth
I know
watching.
some people complained about the violence. Was that an issue in your watching? The violence and the gore? Did you feel it was unnecessary?
They could have toned it down, but I
Mm-hmm.
think by making it as gory as they did, it was more real and
Mm-hmm.
it felt more gruesome in that sense
Yeah,
because
visceral.
yeah, there was a couple moments where it was like just like all of a sudden like super gory and you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
But
That
it
sounds
made
like
it
Quentin
it made it
Tarantino to me.
it did feel very Quentin with those moments, yes. Just no feet.
All right. Coming in at number one, I think if you know our channel, you kind of see this coming.
Mm,
But coming in at number one is the Great Oppenheimer, starring Cillian
yeah.
Mhm.
Murphy, directed by Chris
Mm.
Nolan. Not just starring Cillian Murphy. That's just the icing
Oh
on the
man,
cake. We're talking
there were
about
so
Robert De
many names
Niro,
in this
Emily
movie.
Blunt, Florence Pugh,
Mhm.
Matt
Hmm.
Damon. The list just goes on and
Robert De Niro
on.
wasn't in this movie.
No, he wasn't.
You did say
But
Downey
Robert Downey
Jr.
Downey
Jr.
Robert
Jr.
Downey Jr.
Sorry,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about Killers of
I
the
think
Mountain
Rami
Moon
Malek
still.
was in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look, there is
Hmm.
this
and
movie.
Josh Beck. I mean, if we
Josh
wanna show
Peck.
light on everybody.
This movie not only holds your attention effectively,
Mm,
but it is a 3-hour film where you do not feel as though it is 3 hours. Not in the
yeah.
slightest. It and I was
Mm,
noticing this and I really felt this on the second watch is from when you introduced to Oppenheimer at the beginning of the film all the way to the Trinity Project. You
Hmm.
have this racing feeling, a nonstop race, and that's the way it's
Hmm.
edited. It's the way the sound effects are made. It is the way Chris Nolan intended for the feeling and the frantic nature of the storytelling to be played out. And that's like 2 straight hours. Just that.
Yeah, I would say even when he's interacting with the women in his life,
Frantic,
it
man.
still feels like there's something
mhm.
about him that's not entirely there. That's
Exactly.
somewhere else completely. And it makes you almost feel nervous. Like, why are we spending time on this? Why are we thinking
Exactly.
about this? What does this have to do with the overall point of the movie? And it all of it wraps around, of course.
And really, I think what the last hour of the film is after the Trinity Project,
Mm,
once the bomb is released by the United States on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
hmm.
That is when the film slows down a bit and now it becomes weighty. It's no longer this fast-paced, frantic, kind of nervous feeling that grips your attention. Now it's
Hmm.
a new kind of attention grabber. It's weighty, it's bassy, it's what are the consequences to my actions, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And really emotional turmoil, and it almost feels like it's telling a new story with that last hour of the film, and I thought it was the most beautifully put together Chris Nolan film in my opinion. Probably I haven't seen anything as beautiful of storytelling wise since maybe The Prestige, you know?
Yeah, and it showed us a very important part of history, so it was a very historical film also.
Yes,
Hmm.
yeah, and I think it was intentional. If you go back and watch it, it sobers you up. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
not a sit down and enjoy. You'll enjoy it, but
Mm.
when you reach the end of the
And that
film,
that that scene right after they drop the bombs and he has to give a speech. I know
haunting.
we've talked about that a lot, but that was one of the most haunting scenes I think of this year.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it was Man, that was like horror movie.
Yeah, and it's because there's realism behind it. These are the
Mm.
true events of something that's truly uh, incredible and terrible and amazing and demonic all at the same time. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's scary what the story is in some fashion, and in some fashions it's very beautiful. And so, um, I think it was beautifully done. It definitely lives up to the Chris Nolan brand. And
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, I without just talking about all the details of the film, that's all I can say about Oppenheimer. It definitely takes number one spot for the year.
Oh yeah, gorgeous visuals, gorgeous music, some incredible acting from everybody.
Mm.
Good movie. Yeah.
Great movie.
So that was our top 5 picks of this year. These are our picks. We might have
Yeah.
missed one or two that were maybe should have been in this that we didn't get to watch.
Hmm.
But if you guys find anything that you think should be on this list, put it in the comments
Yeah.
down below. Let us know, because we can't get to every single movie, but we get to as many as we can. And so let us know. And if you enjoyed this video of us ranking the movies of this year, then give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.